Tonight on the A-Zone, we will discuss burnout and how to manage it, and answer listener questions about ego and shooting and what makes a fun stage and match. So first up, we have burnout, and I think we can toss this one to Matt to start with this time. So put your chips away.
They are. All right, burnout. What is it? Okay, a lot of us have invested a whole bunch, and eventually we just hit a point where we just don't want to do it anymore. And of course, two people are drinking as I'm explaining. But anyway, so I'm sure at some point along the shooting journey, a lot of us have experienced it where we just want to take a break. Some of us, that's anywhere between 2 breaks. Sometimes that's even like a quarter of a year, maybe indefinitely until whenever we decide to jump back into it. So, I mean, Calvin, you recently experienced burnout, so why don't you tell us your story?
So when I do train, I put a lot of effort and time into it. I'll dry fire 5 times a week and live fire 2, maybe sometimes even 3 times a week. So it's a lot of effort into getting better at USPSA and shooting all that good stuff. But at the same time, it wears you out. I get tired of it, just like any normal person would. The unfortunate part is my hobbies all include guns, even if they're not related to performance. The good thing is I'm still working with guns during, I don't know, it's good and bad that I'm messing with guns during my off season. So to kind of get over the whole USPSA burnout thing for me is I play with my other guns that are not USPSA legal guns, like this stupid thing. I recently picked up reloading for 223. I've been buying random shit from just stuff that you would never use in USPSA, but they're collectible cool guns. That's my other hobby. And you think guns, because you buy guns, that's the same thing as shooting guns. They're completely separate hobbies as far as finding rare guns and especially for me, I like military style firearms. But besides the point, they're completely separate hobbies. Though what I would do with this is not even remotely close to what I would do in USPSA. Sourcing parts from Poland, and hitting up random people from over there and sending money to a foreign country and hoping you get a sling that you can't buy in the U.S. This is a special sling that the Polish military uses. Same with their mag couplers. Again, you can't buy, no one sells these in the U.S. You have to send it to some dude in Poland and hope he ships it to you. Just little things like that. So it's not really a skill-based hobby. And that might offend some people who do this full time, but it's kind of what I do to get my head out of the whole performance shooting thing for a little bit while I'm recovering.
So you turn into a tactical shooter, is what you're saying?
Even worse, because
oh god.
Watch, he's gonna pop up on a 3-letter news network when this happens.
Yeah, it's almost like collecting Pokemon cards. It's closer to that than it is to shooting guns.
That's not making it sound good.
But I was gonna say, yes, you can take Pokemon. You can take Pokemon cards to school. I mean, I guess technically you can take guns to school.
Oh god.
You can take guns to school in Texas now.
Oh god. Turn off the recording. We have to start over again.
No, keep it in. Keep it in.
All right.
Find something that's different than what you've been doing, and hopefully you're not retarded like me and only like guns, because there's quite a bit of crossover to reloading and marksmanship. I still like to shoot these rifles in a performance manner sometimes, but it's more for fun and not for trying to get myself a whole lot better, seriously anyway.
I think having a hobby outside of competitive shooting is also helpful. So when it's during competitive downtime, finding that hobby, whether it's fishing, new places to eat, maybe you're trying to get into fitness, so finding new places to run, working out, that kind of thing, trying to find a girlfriend, something.
That's a hobby.
Hey, man. Some of us are trying.
Hey, I feel you.
Put a ring on it.
What about you, Koi?
So, wife's trying to feed me. So, I've actually never run into it, and I've got a theory on burnout, and it comes from I don't have like a lifetime of sports, but then I randomly started playing sports a lot when I was an adult. So I think burnout, and I'm ripping off this idea slightly, so if it sounds well articulated, that's not my fault at all. I think burnout comes from like trying to meet your own expectations and then not getting there in a appreciable kind of way. And I think that's an easy trap for that a lot of competitive shooters fall into because as it turns out, USPSA shooters are probably like in that top. I don't know. What do you guys think? 10%, 5%, 1% of shooters from a performance perspective. And
all shooters in the world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So then the natural thing becomes like, okay, well, I'm not going to compare myself to a bozo anymore. So you're not going to like call your neighbor and be like, hey, dude, you suck at shooting, and you feel amazing about it. You're going to be like, well, let me go find the guy that's like the best in the country, and I'll go shoot nationals and then score 65%. Definitely never happens. But then you're like, well, next season I'm going to be 80%, and that doesn't happen or whatever. I think burnout definitely happens because people will set up these lofty goals for themselves and like can't really chew through them. I've never had that because what's the classic saying?
You don't have any goals.
Exactly. If you have no goals, you can't mess up. I'm kidding. No. So I've never really taken like a deliberate off season. This is the first time that I've done it. And it was probably from the end of October Nationals in 2021 to, let's just say now. Technically, I'm still not off of it, but in the meanwhile, like in 2.5 months, I like did what Matt said. I picked up a second hobby. I used to play a lot of video games. I pretty much put it down to be a workaholic, but randomly started like some MMOs, maxed out all my characters, maxed out all of my whatevers, got to like the top guild of the game, and then like I was like, this is terrible because I had like the same amount of input that I had for shooting or being a workaholic, but now focused into video games. And then I burned out because it was like, well, the only thing left to do is to be a toxic PvPer, and I don't, as much time as I was putting into it, I like couldn't realize being like top ranked in whatever thing. So it's kind of like I burned out in something else, and then now I'm ready. I'm back. I'm like fresh and full of ideas for shooting. I don't know. There's a lot of rambling in there, but I think it's beneficial to try to avoid burnout. That's you, but then also like examine like why is this happening?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for me personally, I definitely have experienced burnout like every year. Honestly, that's why I take an off season. But I think, I think at least for me, it's not like goal related. I mean, I have goals, and some of them I achieve, and some of them I obviously don't. But that doesn't discourage me too much. It's more just like after spending, like 8 to 10 months of the year trying really hard and like spending 20 minutes a night at least dry firing and driving to and from the range, like usually Saturday and Sunday, stuff like that. That gets old for me. And loading ammo and cleaning brass and all of the like stuff that goes with shooting gets really old for me. And after about 8 to 10 months of like the full shooting season, when I have like my last major match of the year, I'm like totally ready to take a break from it. And right now it's kind of working good because the whole ammo situation where it's hard to find primers in particular. So I'm kind of just like stretching out my off season right now and conserving primers. But the main goal is to feel motivated. And so I've kind of found a balance in my off season where I don't practice basically at all. Like I actually don't remember the last time I've live fired other than matches. And I'll do dry fire maybe once every 2 weeks, if even that, if I just feel like it. but I still go to matches, like local matches, when I feel like it. And for me personally, that's a really good balance of like not getting tired of it and just kind of staying involved and not forgetting, which end the bullet comes out of, but also avoiding burnout completely. And then once the season rolls around, like I'm already kind of itching to practice. If I had an unlimited supply of primers right now, I would already be practicing, but I could probably stretch it out for another month or two.
Do you guys time off season with events?
Do I time off season events? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, do you time off season with like events? So you guys shoot.
Oh, I see.
Are you talking like you would line up your off season with like nationals or whichever one you care about?
I mean, or anything.
Yeah, I definitely do that. So like our last, or at least my last major match was the North Texas Open back in October, I think.
Yeah.
Whenever that was. And so after that, I practiced pretty heavily leading up to that. And then after that, I did not touch my guns for at least a few weeks. And then I just kind of touched them to go to a local match, but I'm not like really training at all. And then I think I'm signed up for the Texas State Open, which I think is in April. So yeah. I'll probably conclude my off season and start practicing again about a month in advance of that match. So to answer your question, yes, I do try to time it. Like I don't want to go into a major match cold. And if I didn't have the Texas State Open, I would probably start ramping up in dry fire a little bit, but I probably would, at least for this year, try to avoid burning through primers.
You just go to Calvin's house. He picked up a new caliber.
There you go. What about you guys? Do you time your off season with major matches or otherwise?
I do. I'm just surprised that you give yourself so little time before a major. I'm one of those people, if I don't do anything for a while, I lose a lot of skill. So like how I shoot now compared to how I shot at the end of my season last year, it's like a whole different classification.
I think for me, at least me personally, kind of just like staying involved in the game and going to like 2 or 3 local matches a month, but not really practicing, I can kind of maintain at that level. Like, and then maybe like a week of dry fire to brush off the rust when I start ramping back practice up. But I'm like not like losing a substantial amount. But yeah, and to be honest, if I had more primers, I would probably give myself about 2 months. But it is
so
what it is.
You're telling me bench shooting this has not been helping me at all?
No, you should totally keep doing that. Don't dry fire, just shoot that gun.
But yeah, I feel like I started my 2022 season just now, and I have to for Dragon's Cup coming up in May. Because I feel like if I started any later, I would be so unprepared. I hope I don't burn myself out again, but I don't know. I just like having a lot of practice before going into a major match, and I don't feel like 4 weeks is enough for me.
Yeah, and you totally. I mean, it could bite me in the butt, honestly. Now that I think about it, this year will be like the longest off season I've taken in my short 3 or 4 year USPSA run so far. And it'll probably be the smallest amount of time of practice that I've had leading up to a major match. So we'll see how it goes.
It'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, I'm not claiming it's the way to do it. It may bite me in the butt.
You guys ever think it's kind of interesting that there are people that take off season because it's like actually like there's white shit on the ground and we just do it because I don't know reasons.
I have that luxury being in Texas, like even when it's pretty, like you could practice almost outdoors, you could practice almost year round if you wanted to. There would maybe be a few select weekends here and there where it would be like legitimately too cold to go out, but
yeah, like the weekend before the most recent match we shot, where it was so windy that all the targets were just flying everywhere. Like barrels were going up range, and like all the walls were flying across the range. That was
If it's super windy, yeah, if it's super windy and anything below like 45 degrees, then I would just rather not. But That's me personally, especially with the wind. What about you, Matt?
So this is like the first genuine off season that I'm taking because I've been shooting pretty consistently for like the past, consistent schedule for like the past 2 years. So I took like 4 weeks in December, like I think it was like the week or so before Christmas, just absolutely not touching any guns, maybe cleaning them, but not dry firing, not live firing or anything. I only started picking back up recently to shoot a class fire match. So overall, that was actually pretty relaxing. I guess the only other off season that I took, but that was forced, was the 3 months leading up to Double Tap 2020 of when quarantine started with COVID. So
Yeah, that was a weird season for that reason in particular. Well, cool. I think do you guys have anything more to touch on the subject of burnout and managing it?
I think as long as you stop shooting when you don't have fun anymore, and you will probably have an itch to start again if you truly enjoy USPSA or practical shooting. I feel like if you don't feel that itch to shoot again, maybe you should take a longer break.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Actually, that's a good note to end on this topic. I think is just don't force it.
I mean, going back to like what Coy was talking about, how some people think that they were going to be awesome. Set an initial dream, and then have scalable goals that will lead up to that dream. That way, you can monitor yourself, and you also know how to schedule out your breaks.
So win the world shoot within 4 years.
That's a really, really
That's
artistic.
daring.
That's a great goal. No, that's perfect.
Hey, some people do better with ridiculously lofty goals. Have you guys noticed that? This is kind of off topic, but I've had there, and I'm not going to name any names because again, we don't have permission, but I think there's been some people who have set just like absurdly lofty goals and maybe didn't even come close to hitting them, but they did make like incredible progress like aiming for those goals. So I mean, some people maybe thrive with stuff like that.
Maybe that's why it sucks so bad.
I'm on the level of like, put the shoes on the right foot, bring your belt to the match, make sure you brought ammo. The ammo is the right ammo for the gun you're shooting. And I only shoot one kind of gun for like a whole year. I mean, that's like the level of achievement. You can't ever mess up.
Yeah, that's kind of me too, is more like vague goals, like get better, but maybe don't put a number on it because I'll just disappoint myself. Well,
See,
cool.
I did what you're not supposed to. I chased classification.
Oh, I did I think everybody does that a little bit at the beginning. And it is kind of a fun little sub game of the sport, as long as you don't.
It's a mini game of USPSA.
Yeah, as long as you
What
don't
a bunch
cheat.
of noobs. You guys, I was gonna say it's 2022. That's not even the way to do it anymore. You guys slip me at 20. I'll make you a GM tomorrow.
Oh man, that's an enticing offer.
We don't even need to pay you. We just grab the iPad.
Yeah.
Dave, what you guys fail to realize is how much of a pain in the ass it is to upload all the scores. So I can take all the trouble off your hands
for the low price of $20.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that sums up the burnout topic pretty well. So I think we can go to some listener questions now. And first up, we have, why is there so much ego in shooting? And I'll let you guys interpret that how you want for the discussion. So not everybody at once.
It's a competition. Everyone wants to have their own stomping ground. Therefore, you're going to have some ego in the game. You want to be the best. So, yeah, why the heck wouldn't you have some kind of ego?
I'm with Matt on this one. I mean, it's kind of to be expected, right?
Yeah.
There's no competition if there's no ego involved. And I mean, that's like not to get into like a psychology lesson, but like there's some amount of self-protection that always happen. If Matt whoops my ass, it's because my gun didn't work, obviously.
You're using the wrong springs.
So I guess to kind of dig down into this question a little bit more, do you think so that sounds like you guys are kind of talking about the good aspect of ego. Like I know you're joking, Coy, but like kind of you're doing it because you want to win, obviously. Like I don't personally, I don't really understand the people that are out there that just say they're out there for fun. I'm glad they can show up and be part of the sport and get something fulfilling out of the sport in that regard, but it doesn't make sense to me personally. From a competition aspect, it's like you're trying to win, even if you don't have any chance. You're out there trying to. But so along those lines, is there such a thing as like a bad ego with it relates to shooting?
I think if you do too much of the self-protection, right? There's only so many times that Matt whoops my ass before it's like, could just be that Matt.
You're just going to PCC?
Exactly. It's like, this motherfucker, I'll show him. I'll shoot a fucking rifle.
Bring my rifle out.
Come on, bro. Fight me. Raw time champ. Let's go.
Like, I'll show you bitches to beat me. I'll bring the rifle. Gets beat by Dazzy anyways.
Yes, Dazzy still beats everybody. So what I'm hearing is the bad ego would be like refusing to participate, either by not showing up or switching to PCC, and effectively refusing to participate.
It's really loud.
Oh my god, we weren't gonna get this mean on this episode. I'm sorry, guys, that's on me. But go ahead.
The other bad ego would be like refusing to learn.
Yeah.
Right. You have it's not as common in USPSA because there's clearly like cut scoring, like who actually won, who's like able to shoot faster and shoot more accurately. It's when you get into the shooting that has no scoring or metrics aren't measured or anything, that's where like the ego becomes like a bigger thing.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you're about to make fun of the tactical guys again.
I had never used that word.
I actually heard the what do you call it, Connor? You said this before. It always cracks me up. If sick.
It's if sick, and I can't claim to have come up with that. I wish I could, but that was not my term that I came up with. But for those who aren't familiar, it's the sport, at least outside the U.S., is Ep6, and the joke is if sick, like playing what if with all of your scores. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean that's the only other like bad ego. It's still like self protection. You're like, well, I would have whooped his ass if I didn't shoot those 10 mics.
And it's like working under it's working under the assumption that you were the only one who didn't have a perfect match. It's like no one had a perfect match. Like
yeah, and equipment failures don't count either, because part of the game is making sure all your gear and your ammo and your guns are good.
Exactly.
Like that is part of the score, even though it's not scored directly.
Yeah, and it's like, well, so you couldn't keep your equipment running, but that other guy could. So, like maybe it was the equipment's fault or maybe it wasn't, but he's still better than you because he made the equipment work. So, yeah, I don't get people who make that excuse either. But so I think from my perspective on ego and shooting, a little bit different, I guess. What I thought of when I read this question was instantly, there are some activities that are kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but like just like inherent like male activities. So you think about like shooting is like all like, at least if we take a step back outside the context of competition and you like remember the first time you ever shot a gun with a couple of your buddies or something like that, it's like everyone thought they were going to be really good at it. It's just like one of those like male things where it's like, oh, I'm a man, shooting's a manly thing, I'm going to be good at shooting. It's same for like fist fighting. I know Coy has a little bit of jiu-jitsu experience. It's like everybody thinks they're going to be good at fighting until you have like a 7-year-old girl choke you unconscious, and like then you realize that, oh wow, you're not actually good at this thing unless you practice it. And driving a car maybe is another one where it's just like, for whatever reason, it's just one of those things that like all guys, just like whether they've practiced it or not, they think they're good at it. And so I think that is part of it. Is it's one of those activities that just all males seem to think they're like natural born talents of, and so I think that's part of it. And then when you realize that, oh wow, there's people that practice this all the time and they're going to beat me because I don't practice it ever. Some people, their ego doesn't like that. So I think there's a little bit of that, and that's just like, I don't think that's specific to shooting. I could think you could almost find that in any sport. And I definitely think there's the good aspect of that, where that could be motivating if you get crushed by someone that you really didn't expect to crush you. That can be really motivating, depending on your personality. For some people, that can be like, you'll never see them again when that happens. So, it's good and bad, I guess.
Are we talking shit about Timmy's again? I can't remember, because that's also another tie-in, because I think we've only talked about it in the context of competitive. If you talk about like the ego and culture around like shooting in general, or gun culture in general, holy shit, what a what an interesting topic this turns into. I've heard all sorts of things, like, I don't know, what's the common one? One mo all day from like, $300, rifles that you buy on Wish. You bought parts from Wish.com, and they're like, oh well, I'm like a sniper, and it's like I'm really good, but when it comes time to like say, okay, well, let's have a friendly competition, or let's just go prove this, then it's like, then all the self-protection stuff comes out again, like, no, well, only with good ammo, and I don't have it right now, or it's just like random
Oh
whatever.
yeah, the excuses come out.
Yeah, I'll post like stage videos, and I'm not like an amazing shooter. I'm like the low end of M class, and I'll get dudes who've never shot a match in their lives tell me that everything I'm doing wrong, and I challenge them to a match.
They never show up. It's so weird.
No,
That's
I was like,
you're a modern day duelist, Calvin. That's like calling someone's honor into question. I love it.
And they come up with like 10,000 excuses for why they won't show up.
There was a period where you were like offering to pay their way and pay their match fee, and like you would give them your guns if they won, and like still no takers. It was a pretty enticing offer. I was thinking about getting like a fake account. You guys don't want a free
Campolio stock 3? Like, that's kind of an expensive gun. It's like,
over here racing for slips.
Yeah,
I'm gonna train some casual. I'm gonna train some casual for like 5 years.
So they don't have any practice score.
Exactly.
Records.
Yeah.
But and even like non-competition related, I'll get guys who DM me with like gun facts, and they're like clearly wrong, but they're so confident in what they're saying. I'm like, bro, we have this search engine called Google, right? Like, you can look this stuff up.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to personality type. Like, there's some people who, like, everybody has an ego. You can say you don't, but like everybody does. And there's some people who are just gonna be like, wow, I was wrong about that, or like I was not as good as I thought I was, and then it's gonna be like, but I can get that good because like someone just did that. It's possible. And then there's other people who just like, they don't want to be told that it's possible. They want to think they're at the bleeding edge when they're not. And I think if you have the personality type to participate in just competitive sports in general, then your ego can be very motivating. Matt, you've been quiet.
I was the one who talked first on this.
Oh.
He's trying to find the next match to whoop my ass at, because
he's been registering for all the Houston matches.
He's like, this guy's over here like, oh yeah, I would have beat him every time if it weren't for
he's like
whatever.
Messaging the MDs, be like, don't allow PCC at this match. Minor scoring only.
Coy and I are always racing for raw time, so we always have that going for us.
Yeah, and so when one of you wins, because you both are competitors, when one of you wins and the other one doesn't, is that motivating? Or how does that make you feel?
I'm in it for the long game, so it is motivating. If you're a bit short-sighted and you're like, well, I should beat him all the time. I mean, nobody really stays the same all the time unless you are doing only self-protection. You know what I mean? Like ego protection.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's always a good time for me. But I mean, it's really related to burnout, right? Like I mean, it's hard to. I've never thought about it this way, but you can probably pick out the signs or the behaviors about someone who's got a bit too much ego, and you could probably put your finger out and say, that's a guy that's going to be done shooting in about 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's definitely a healthy level. That's a good way to put it. Is they have a little bit too much. There's a
What would
healthy
you say
level.
those negative signs are?
He's gonna start naming off like tactical pants.
I'm trying to
carriers.
I'm trying to be very careful here.
Yeah, you've already made fun of him enough.
Exactly. I'll just say, if they start selling their reloading equipment, that's like 1,000% sign right there. Like, yeah, they're done. They're super done.
Yeah, I think yeah, I definitely have had like the glass case of emotions after a poor performance, and it almost is irrelevant to placement, but it obviously oftentimes relates to like someone you really wanted to beat ended up beating you. But for me, I'll have like a few days of like, oh God, why do I even do this? And then after a few days, the like initial like self-loathing kind of cools off, and then it gets really motivating. It's like, okay, well, if they can do it, so can I.
You guys ever have your wife, girlfriend, whatever, or family member be like, hey, I want to show you this because you're like kind of proud of what you've been doing, and they're like, you spend a lot of money on this, shouldn't you be better? That's my wife all the time.
Oh, I always tell my girlfriend that I win, even if I don't. So she doesn't know how to check the scores. So.
There's your unhealthy ego right there.
I'm like, oh yeah, I was like second or third to some pretty solid GM. She's like, so you're a loser?
That's motivating right there. There you go. She's doing you a favor. All right. Well, I think. Do you guys have anything left on this topic on ego and shooting?
I'm done. I don't want to give any more fuel to Matt.
Yeah, I think the person that asked this question, I don't know who asked this question. It was from one of you guys, but whoever asked this question, I got the subtext that they thought it was maybe bad, and I think to sum up what we all said, it can be bad, but it's not necessarily bad. I think just having that healthy level is what keeps you competitive. All right. Next up, our second listener question. This question was a really good one. Probably my favorite one we got, actually. No offense to everyone else's. But it's what makes a fun stage or a match in general. And the way that they phrased it was how to make a stage fun for like a masterclass level guy as well as a like C-class level guy.
So what you want are arrays in 8, and there's always going to be 32 rounds. And you want a shooting box for each array.
Yeah, your measurement of success should be what percentage of people at the match did the exact same stage plan, regardless of division. The higher that percentage is, the better the stage was. No. I'm just kidding. But so I think this was a really good question, and I think before I kick it to you guys on how you want to answer this, from my perspective, this is super possible, and like some of the best matches I've ever been to were fun for everyone in attendance, regardless of skill level. So with that being said, I'll pick on you, Coy. What do you think makes a fun stage or match?
Damn it,
Maybe
Connor.
not just
I'm
fun,
supposed to go
but
last.
Good.
Okay, I didn't want to say anything because it's like I feel like
pass
this
if
is
you
a self what do you call it? Shameless self promotion. So I MD'd 2 clubs when I was still in DFW, and I like to think that people like them. And I like to think that's because I have a grasp of what's going on there, in terms of like how to make a good or a fun stage or a collection of stages, right? So there's a lot of things that go into it, but the gist, like if I don't boil it down into like a single sentence, it should tap on all the fun things about shooting, which people don't really. I mean, you'd have to really ask yourself, like, why is shooting fun? Tap on all the different areas of shooting that people consider to be fun, and then have them in like enough varied ways that you're like, oh, I didn't just do the same thing 10 times in a row. That's maybe an exaggeration. There's not enough rounds in a stage to do it 10 times in a row, but you don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. And then it also requires a grasp on how good people are at the top end, and an idea of what is practical for practical shooting with a handgun, right? I think there's a common trap, which is to make things overly hard or difficult or overly easy. And it's like very contextual. So having a really good grasp on that, and then applying it in a way that is really applying it in a way that promotes a lot of like diversity in like shooting things. So I mean, there's only so many skills involved in shooting, and not to go on a whole tangent of like what those are, but stages that tap on everything and matches that tap on everything are the ones that people like. I think the ones that they're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. I don't know why it's fun. Like they can't say this array or this target or this many positions, but like that was fun, and I don't really understand why. And actually, that's the kind of feedback that. So I'll just ask people like after matches, like, what'd you think about whatever? How'd you shoot? And I've heard people say, and really good shooters too, GMs all the way down to D class guys, will say things like, I'm not really sure why. Everything seemed just a little tough today. And if you kind of know what you're doing, that'll tell you that you're either on the right track or you're way off track or what's kind of going on. Because you kind of like understand the nuance of like how to spread stuff out to make a stage really, really good and engaging. That was sarcasm I seen from you guys earlier about arrays of 8 shots and boxes and stuff like that. It's just to say like really clearly, those are not fun because they're incredibly repetitive, right? I mean, I like shooting as much as the next guy, but it doesn't do anything for me to bang out 32 rounds 4 times in a row on 6 stages, or however many stages. So anyways, I blabbed on a bit.
Yeah, I think everything you said made sense for sure. What do you think, Matt?
So I was kind of thinking about it while Coy was talking his head off. So Mason Lane has this thing for stage planning that he calls layers of difficulty. So like just simply shooting targets is like one layer of difficulty. Adding on parcels is another layer. There's a moving target there. That's another layer of difficulty. So like if you could find a way, if you're a stage designer, to kind of plan around that kind of thing where you have anywhere between 2, 3, that way most people can be pretty happy with the stage. Possibly a 4th if you really want to hang people. Like figuring out what is the general skill level of your local population, and then applying that so that there's some challenge across the board for everyone, whether you're a C class all the way up to G.
Yeah, that's good stuff. What about you, Calvin?
I think one thing for me, it's gonna be kind of a specific example, but I don't like it when you have targets that are in a manner that everyone has to shoot them from this one specific spot all the time. I like it when stage designers give you the freedom to decide whether you can shoot them standing or shoot them on the move, and it's actually a viable option to shoot on the move. You'll see, but I guess when I see a poorly designed stage, I can just, well, one of the things I look at is, well, are all these targets intended to be shot stationary, and can only be shot stationary? That's one thing I look for. I mean, you're gonna have some stationary shooting in USPSA like all the time. It's just part of the game. But when all of the shots are stationary and that's the only option, I find that a negative negative trait of the stage design.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that kind of comes down to the you go to a match where maybe the stages are a little bit not as good as you would hope, and everybody shoots basically the same stage plan, what that boils down to is exactly what you were saying, where it's like, okay, this array of 3 or 4 targets you can only see from here. Other array of 3 or 4 targets you can only see from there. And maybe everyone doesn't go to the exact same positions in the same order, but everyone goes to the exact same positions, and from every position they shoot the exact same target arrays. And so it's just, I mean, it still is probably going to like separate the best shooters from the worst shooters. So I mean, like, I guess at the end of the day the match still did its job, but it's just not very interesting. And so, in my opinion, on this one, I think you guys summed it up well with like having a variety of shooting skills represented in the stage or the match as a whole, as well as like options on every stage. And I think options should be more like to Calvin's point, should be more than just this guy went to position A, then to position B, and I'm going to go to position B and then to position A. But from those positions, we're going to shoot the exact same targets. That's not really an option. It's just, like whatever. But so I think like real options of like engaging targets from different places and like having the option to take something on the move and being able to weigh if it's worth it for your skill level or not, and things like that is pretty intriguing. If you go to a match that has stages like that, it's really fun to shoot those stages. I could think of a couple things that are maybe like red flags. Like if you are setting up stages and you find yourself doing this, maybe take a step back and consider it. Would be if you have like a preconceived notion of what people's stage plan should be when you're setting up a stage, that doesn't make for a very interesting stage. If you're like, okay, well, first competitors are going to run here and shoot these things, then they're going to run over here and shoot these things, you ultimately do exactly what you set out to do, and you force everyone to do the exact same thing, and it's just not very fun. Another thing I've seen, I think like a common, I guess you could call it a mistake when setting up stages, would be they'll have like a shooting area with targets and walls and barrels and things set up, and then they'll be like, well, not all of the competitors are going to have to come to this location in the shooting area to shoot this target because it's also available from somewhere else. So let's put up a wall so that they have to come to this corner of the shooting area or something like that. And I think that's just like a fundamental misunderstanding of like the fact that that target is available from somewhere else is a good thing. And like just because not everyone has to all go to some location in the shooting area, that's okay. They can go there if they feel like it and they think it's worth it, or maybe not. So I think that trying to make people go to specific locations in the shooting area usually doesn't make for a fun stage. And you guys touched on this too, having like all 32 round stages is kind of like, I don't know, people put way too much weight on round count, I think. The box to box stuff, if you're making a stage that's box to box and it's not like a classifier that forces you to do box to box, you're probably doing something wrong. Probably gonna sound mean saying that, but like you should not be using shooting boxes in my opinion. It's just realistically,
I took that personally.
Just in the spirit of USPSA, I think shooting boxes should maybe be used very sparingly, if at all. Let's see. Can you? I guess because you guys stole all the good aspects. Can you guys think of any more red flags that people shouldn't do?
Mirrored stages. That's an automatic sus thing to me. If I see someone just completely mirror one stage, symmetrically or a symmetrical stage, that's a yellow flag at best and a red flag most of the time.
Yeah.
And then this has less to do with the stage, but I guess the things that go stages like start conditions. My personal opinion is if you have more than one non-standard start condition, nobody likes you. They just don't want to tell you. And it's not about making people like you, but in terms of practical shooting, there's only so many things that you can add on before it's like, yeah, you're just being annoying. So if you're the guy that's like, fingers interlaced, gun on table, unloaded, facing up range, yeah, nobody likes you.
Yeah, you can get I think I agree with your, if it's more than one, everyone's going to be pissed. You can get a bit away without one goofy start position per match, and it goes from being fun to really annoying, like, immediately. One thing that just popped into my head when you said start positions was specifically mags not on belt. And you guys are laughing because, me and Calvin can come together in our hatred of this as low cap shooters. But so there are some stages where it doesn't bother me at all. So it can be done in a way that's not horrible. But when they say all mags on table or all mags on barrel or something like that, it's almost always people that shoot open because they're gonna have to pick up one magazine, if that, and then they'll be good for the rest of the stage. So if you're doing that, just consider that there are other divisions that probably also want to have fun at the match, and maybe give different locations along the or throughout the shooting area that people can put mags. So then you can change it up and have people be doing reloads from not their belt, and also make the stage not miserable for people shooting low cap divisions. I think that's a big one because that really is frustrating as a low cap shooter. I'm not gonna lie. Anything else? Can you guys think of any no-nos as far as stage design goes?
There are times you can tell who designed a stage even without looking at the name. So if you know someone that does X, Y, and Z, and they continuously do X, Y, and Z for whatever local match, and you see that also translated to maybe the local major match, that's another red flag that either you need to ask this person to change things up or you need another stage designer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point you bring up and it's not just on a stage by stage basis. Looking at the match, if you're a match director at a local level, this is it's just forgivable at a local level. But if you do this, I think it's you can have a home run match where if you look at the match as a whole with all the stages and make sure that you don't have all 32 round stages or all short courses or something, if you can not just have variety on individual stages, but if you can have variety throughout the match as a whole, I think you can really have a grand slam of a match. And usually major matches do a decent job of that, usually. But if you do it at the local level, I mean, it's a just enormous hit. One that just pops.
You guys.
Go ahead.
Given everything you guys have said, are you guys fans or not fans of the new classifier that just came out?
Not a fan.
Which one? The 444 one?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess on I don't know, man. I'm kind of torn. On one hand, there's movement. It's not a stand and shoot. So I think having movement is okay. But on the other hand, it's one of those we just talked about where it's 8, 8, 8. Everybody does the exact same stage plan. It's so it's they added
That's
movement,
not
but
true. You can shoot the middle array from the back right corner.
Yeah, you're right. If you said they were actually improving the stage by giving you options. They really were. They were just making the stage better.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that one kind of misses the forest for the trees, where they were oh, it has movement, but it's well, yeah, great, you added movement, but everything else about it's kind of meh. But
yeah,
there were some good ones, though. To be fair, I think there's been some good ones. Maybe not 2021 classifiers, but I think there were a couple 2020 classifiers that were legitimately cool. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I remember liking a few of them.
I liked all 20 classifiers. 21, it just, especially if you're a carry optics shooter, if you don't have the capability to at least do 23 plus 1, or if you're one of those lucky people that can do 24 in a mag, you're kind of hosed on time. So
we'll just shoot a better gun, man.
Shit, yeah. I didn't even open shooter. Didn't even have to say it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You didn't have to do
4 rounds in my mag.
Yeah, did you guys not do a reload in between all the positions? What?
I did with a mic.
Alvin and I definitely had to. So. All right. Well, anything else on fun or just good? Maybe not necessarily fun, but good/fun stages and matches. Or do we beat that one to death?
Are we talking enjoyable just to shoot, or enjoyable for like, I guess, other aspects too, like administrative? I hate things like if you have to score more than 4 shots on a target, that's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
If you have most of the time, if you're shooting more than one string, also horrible. Um,
What
this
about
is
split bays? And then you have both squads going at the same time but alternating. Don't you guys love that?
definitely something you should run at the nationals.
Yeah, I think we can just leave it at that because that's been beaten to death for good reason. But my God, that was horrible. But yeah.
Look, just
Where you don't know when
experiment
you're going
around
up.
with whatever you got.
Yeah, and I think so. You just held up what looked like a swinger, and
It
that
is.
made me think of it. Is at local matches, I think know your props. And so I know at some matches they'll maybe put up really fun stages, but there will be like at least one moving target on every stage. And depending on the quality of the props, you know, like I think all of us have shot club matches where the props were kind of meh and like it's totally forgivable because like, you know, they're club match props. But just you have to kind of know that where you end up with backups if you have like 2 swingers on every stage because like they don't work properly every time or something like that. So just knowing that and trying to avoid backups is important. What
Anyone?
else? Is there let's see. Oh, having accurate scoring. I guess this is like particularly relevant right now, but just because it's a
That's not
level
a
1.
stage design thing.
No, not necessarily. You're right. But yeah, I mean to have a good stage or a match, just like scoring it accurately, I think is important. Like just because it's a local match or a level 1 match doesn't mean it's like there's still people that care about getting the correct score.
Not benefit to the shooter.
And
That
no,
seems to be what happens at all the local matches I go to.
well, yeah, we've all been in that position. I think most recently I've seen Matt in that position where someone tries to give them like a gimme and it's like, no, I don't want it. Like I want the right score. Like I don't want like the benefit of the doubt. I don't want any favors. I just want the correct score, you know?
all
So
I
I think
know is
and Matt
whatever.
called like a mic on himself on like a perf hit or something. I feel like I recently saw that, and it was like the R. And I don't mean to be mean about anybody, but like the R was trying to be nice, and it's like, no, bro, like I don't want you to be nice. I just want to get scored correctly. And I don't mean to call you out, Matt, but that just popped into my memory most recently.
I shoot perfect doubles all the time.
Yeah.
You guys.
All I know is anytime somebody say it's like a 14 target stage, someone's like, I only got 13 targets. As I watch that person hit 2 alpha that last time, I'm be like, I'm tagging you on USPSA Insights right now.
Oh, dude. Oh, man, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole here, but I hate that when people score ahead, dude, and like everyone locally should know this by now. I have like a single digit IQ, so like people need to not score ahead of me when I'm running the tablet because I don't know what's going on. Like you've got 10 people, you know, calling out scores to you, and I'm like, bro, I'm missing like 4 targets here, and I don't know which ones they were. I hate that. I'm like, either somebody else needs to run the tablet who's smarter than me, or we need to just go in order and score all these targets.
I'm gonna take a picture of Connor on the tablet and then like post it to Insights.
me looking dumbfounded, having like
Disclaimer:
Hey.
none of these people run inside the insides page.
Yeah. Hey, I won't hit 2 alpha. We'll just have incomplete scoring. That's how I roll.
It'll be funny because I don't know how many times you guys have run into it, but I won't say what club or where, but I've shot matches over like the entire time I've shot USPSA where we'll be like the 3rd squad on a stage and someone will be like, oh, here, take the pad go. I'm like, okay. I'm scoring. I'm like, there's too many targets on this bay. What have you guys been scoring? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like 15 targets in the pad, but there's only like 13 on the stage. And it's like, oh yeah, we just been putting in alphas, no big.
Yeah, and then that's the worst because then you have to make sure that like everybody does the same thing because it's like, okay, if every squad just puts in alphas, it's still wrong, but at least everyone's on the same page. But then like, if not everyone does that, it's just, oh god, I hate that. Yeah, and that type of stuff, it's totally forgivable if stuff gets set up a little incorrectly at level 1 matches, but like if you're the first squad and you get to a stage and you notice something like incorrectly, you should totally bring it up to the MD so that like the whole day isn't messed up. You can just get it fixed like right in the morning.
Matt's like, yeah, 2 alphas, bro.
You get a Mike no shoot.
Yeah, Matt just gives everyone he likes 2 alphas and 2 mics to everybody else. Just kidding.
Totally not cheating.
Jesus, for the disclaimer, in case everyone thinks we're serious, Matt is a rule Nazi in the best way. So.
Could you at least try putting that in a better light?
Was that not a good light?
I almost asked, which way exactly?
Yeah. Oh god. So, oh man. Yeah, we're definitely gonna delete this and re-record it. But to be clear, Matt is the type of person who will call penalties on himself that the RO did not catch, and that's how you should be too if you shoot USPSA.
And that is how you do not make GM.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's the hard way to do it, but it's the right way to do it.
Wait, so now that you made GM, are you trying to tell us something?
Well, hang on, because at the time
just started cheating.
We need to see the Wednesday of. Make sure I make GM before we actually say we have a GM on this podcast.
He's like, guys, I figured it out. You just have to start cheating like everyone else is apparently doing.
Yes, I totally made the new high hit factor.
Yeah, did you beat it by like 40% or something?
For all of them.
All right, I think we should cap it off here before we go on another tangent.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're gonna have to re-record anyways, so. All right, thank you everyone for listening. Stay tuned and send your questions to the more popular social media personalities on the page.